And so we did verses 10 and 11, right? About the precepts. They're looking particularly at the 8 precepts. So then verse 12 is about getting rid of incompatible traits. So these are things that are incompatible with keeping precepts and incompatible with just being a nice person. Of course, we all think we're nice people, but we have some of these. Okay, so the verse reads, and I'm going to use a little bit different vocabulary here. Stinginess and deceit, greed and laziness, pretension, attachment, hate, and pride. In parentheses, I have breeding, good looks, learning, youth, and power. Such traits are seen as enemies of good. Okay, so there are these qualities that, the traits that they're enemies of good. They get in the way of creating virtue, being a nice person. Okay, stinginess. I volunteer. So stinginess or miserliness, it's based on attachment, and it doesn't want to part with what we have. Okay, so like I was saying yesterday, we may save different things, even relatively silly things, out of fear that we will need them if we give them away, or even very worthwhile things, fear that if we give them, we won't have them. So it's a mind that isn't very certain about karma and its effects, and it doesn't have confidence that generosity brings wealth. Okay, so we find various ways to cover up our stinginess, and we have ways to make excuses and this and that and the other thing. You're probably familiar with them, or either that, or I have to talk solely about myself. Okay, the next one, they translated as cunning, but it's deceit, actually, and it goes with the one in the second line, which they said arrogance, and I think the way it's described, it's pretension. So deceit and pretension are two mental factors that go hand in hand, okay? Deceit pretends to not have bad qualities that we actually do have, and pretension pretends to have good qualities that we don't have. Okay? So deceit, this comes up when people may point things out to us or give us some kind of feedback, and we instantly react with defensiveness, or we misinterpret what they say and accuse them of saying something that they haven't, because we are very firm about covering up and denying our bad qualities. Yeah. Like, how dare you see my bad qualities, even though they're visible to the whole world? How dare you see them? And even if you see them, how dare you comment on them? Yeah. And so as Dharma practitioners, this becomes a big problem for us. If we get very defensive, when people point out our mistakes or our bad qualities, then how are we going to grow? Okay? And some people even get mad at the Dharma teachings. Like you get mad at Nagarjuna because he's talking about having deceit. And I don't have that bad quality of deceit. How dare Nagarjuna even talk about that? Maybe the king has it, but not me. I don't cover up my mistakes. I don't deny having the bad qualities I actually do have. Okay? So we're very funny, because we can talk about our own bad qualities, but nobody else is permitted to mention them. Okay? I can mention them and tell you about them, but you cannot let me know that you've noticed them. Okay? Because if you do, then I'll say, oh, so you're saying that I'm blah, 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 completely exaggerating or misconstruing what the person, actually said. And then, just denying it. Oh, or maybe we minimize it, Oh, yeah, I have a problem with attachment or anger or whatever it is, but I'm working on it. Yeah, I'm working. So I'm working on it seems to be code for don't you mention it. Okay? Yeah? Anybody here have that? Yeah. So somebody says, gee, whatever it is, gee, you're a little bit miserly. Oh, I know that, but I'm working on it. And are you saying that I don't give anything at all? I mean, that's really exaggerated. How dare you say I don't give anything at all? I do give things. I am generous. And I'm working on my miserliness. Okay. Have it your way. I was just trying to help by pointing something out. But the person responds, yeah. So that always happens when we're trying to help somebody else by pointing something out to them. But when somebody points out something to us, we're totally receptive and, easily acknowledge our own problem, right? Yeah, right. We don't get defensive. We don't accuse the other person of, what is it? People in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. Yeah. We don't accuse people of that. We're yes, I can accept it. How dare you say that about me? Okay. So that's deceit. Yeah. So it happens in our workplace, doesn't it? Yeah. If your boss or a colleague mentions something to you, like, oh, gee, you're having a little bit of trouble with this project. That's all they're saying is you're having a little bit of trouble with this project. Are you insinuating that I don't know what I'm doing? Yeah. Yeah, there's a few bumps, but I know very well what I'm doing. I'm completely capable. That's how we respond. Okay? So it happens in the workplace, it happens with friends and relatives who are trying to point things out to us. Yeah. So this doesn't mean that everything somebody says about us is 100% true. Okay, but it does mean that when somebody comments, depending who it is, if they're saying it in a nice tone of voice and they're a person that you trust, maybe it's good to listen. Yeah? Because we're always saying, I want to improve myself. So sometimes even if a person isn't saying it in such a nice way, they didn't make 3 prostrations and kneel down before pointing out our fault. They just said, you messed this up. Still even then to to be able to be transparent and say, yeah, you're right, I did. And, I need to learn this, and can you explain some of this to me, how I can do it in the future, whatever it is. Okay? It's difficult, isn't it? Yeah. People are not allowed to say the slightest negative thing about us or about the people that we care about. You know, if you're family members, you can criticize them, but nobody else can. Yeah. Your best friend, you can point out their fault, but nobody else can. And it even happens in our groups. Yeah. So I grew up Jewish. Jews put themselves down, make fun of themselves all the time. But somebody who's not Jewish is not allowed to say anything. Yeah? So, this happens with our ethnic and religious. Similarly with Buddhists, we could say, yeah, the Buddhist institutions have a problem with XYZ. We can say that. But a Christian cannot say that to us. Yeah, they're not allowed to comment. But we're allowed to comment on their religious institutions. And we wonder why they deny it and make excuses when we do. Well, because they're just like us. Yeah? Okay. So that's deceit. And then pretension is pretending to have good qualities we don't have. Okay, like when you fill out a job application. And like I was saying yesterday, I'm a quick learner is code for I don't know what I'm doing. But, yes, I am a quick learner. Unless you're talking about, whatever thing it is that we don't do well in. Oh, yeah, I'm a very quick learner, but not about statistics. Or I'm a very quick learner, but not about English grammar, you know? So, but we don't add the but part of it, yeah? So we pretend to have good qualities that we don't have. So again, this is coming, like we talked before, it's kind of coming out of attachment to reputation, attachment to praise and approval, yeah? And all that is based on, a sense of insecurity within ourselves and a way of giving our power over to other people because we're out of touch with ourselves. So then we just believe whatever somebody says about us, or we get mad at them for saying it. So what we really need to do is build up our ability to look at ourselves in an honest way, see our good qualities, see our strengths. Nothing wrong with that. Getting arrogant and proud about them is a problem, but recognizing our talents and strengths, we need to do that and to rejoice. And we need to be honest about our weaknesses and so on. Okay. I was once talking with someone who had a friend who was engaged. He was a professor in a university, and so he helped to review applications for graduate students, who worked in his science lab, and so on. And he was asked, what criteria do you look at for selecting the graduate students, the people who you want to be graduate students and work in your lab? And the professor said, by seeing what they do when they fail. And I thought, wow, yeah, that tells you a lot about somebody. How do they handle failure? Do they deny it? Do they make excuses? Do they own it? Do they get discouraged and give up? Do they go back and learn anew and make changes to what they're doing so that next time it comes out in a better way? How do we respond when we fail? Because we all fail at one thing or another, don't we? Yeah. And sometimes we fail really big time. And it's so embarrassing. And sometimes we think the failure is huge, but other people don't see it as a big failure. And they can't figure out why we are so stuck in self-deprecation, because it seems like such a small thing. Yeah. Okay. So this is all related to deceit and pretension. Okay, greed. That's the next one in line 1. I want this, I want that. I have to have this, I have to have that. Okay, so it can be for material goods, that's how we usually use the word greed, but it can also be for attention. Yeah, we see people, I won't mention who are starved for attention, and are constantly looking at the news to see if it's about them. Yeah. Or we have our own ways of being greedy for attention. Yeah. In one place or another, we have to make our footprint. We have to show people, that we're here, and then we bask in their attention. Then the next one is laziness. Here it says sloth, but it's laziness, okay? And there's different kinds of laziness. One is just what we usually call laziness, which is sloth. You're just lying around doing nothing. Another one is the laziness of being so busy that you don't have any time to think about Dharma. And the third is the laziness of discouragement, putting ourselves down. Yeah. So it's interesting, isn't it, that discouragement is a form of laziness. Why? Because it keeps us from doing, what we need to do to create the causes of happiness. Yeah, like practicing the Dharma. Okay, then arrogance, which I think is pretension. I don't know if they have the Tibetan in here. Anyway, it's at the front. Oh yeah, there it is. Okay, yeah. I was just going by how the commentary talked about these. Okay, attachment. Yeah, so based on exaggerating or projecting good qualities about someone or something, and then sticking to it, I want it, I need it. It can take many different forms, yeah, and we can be attached to many different things. Sometimes it's longing, yeah, sometimes it's giddiness, yeah, lots of sometimes it's kind of this relentless, I've got to get this no matter what. Sometimes it's neediness. Yeah, so lots of attachment can take many different shapes and forms. Hate. Okay. I can't stand this person. Yeah. Or anger, which is related to hatred, but different than hate. Yeah. Hate is much more ingrained, isn't it? When you hate, anger, you get angry and then you get over it. Hate, you really are going to hate that person for a long time. Yeah. Are there people that you have determined to hate? No? Are there people that you got angry at that you decided never to speak to again? What's the difference between getting angry and deciding never to speak to them again and hating them? Yeah, think about that. Yeah. Anger is easy to admit. Hatred is nasty. We don't want to admit that one. Okay? And then pride here. Pride is what I call arrogance. Okay? So here, being arrogant or proud, and here are some examples over one's breeding. Breeding. I don't know. That's what I think about, what they're doing with their animals on their neighbor's property. But maybe our own breeding, our social status, our family, the way we were raised, some way of thinking we are superior. Yeah. And so, we always find many ways to think we're superior in one way or another, Even if we're not in the superior class, we're the superior of the middle class. Yeah, of whatever, I'm not talking just economic middle class, but however we divide people up. Okay? So, some way in which I am best. We're superior, we, are proud or arrogant about our good looks. Okay? So I may be athletic, I may be sexy. I don't think wearing this qualifies. I have such long, beautiful hair. I have good eyes. I'm very attractive. So something about our good looks. Yeah. So that even when you get old and you have more wrinkles, then you're a good-looking older person. Yeah. Among all the older people, you're the best-looking one. Okay? So in the old folks' home, we're the most attractive. Yeah. Yeah. But we find some way of, with respect to our body. And this is actually, if we are proud over our body or our physique, it's really a setup for a lot of pain later on, because we're all getting older and we're all getting uglier. And so we're losing our beauty, we're losing our good physique. Yeah, I have one Dharma friend. He was in such bad shape when we lived in India, overweight and everything. Now when I talk to him, you look at my muscles, he showed me over Skype. I have a trainer now. I'm going to the gym, however many days a week, and I'm in such good shape. And he's 70 something. Well, good. Congratulations. I'm glad you're in good shape now, even though you weren't when you were in your 40s. It's better than being out of shape. But yeah, we get, I'm the best of all the 70-year-olds. Yeah, we always find some way to be the best, don't we? Yeah, in one way or another. Okay, learning. Oh, yes, we are very learned. We've studied many texts. We graduated from such and such a university. Yeah, we got a scholarship for this university. Yeah, I got accepted into a graduate program. I was valedictorian of my high school. I do this, I do that, our learning, okay? So we may be very ignorant about many topics, but we'll find one topic in which we are the most learned. Yeah. Okay. So again, this is being arrogant about these things is very different than acknowledging that we have a certain talent or ability. Okay. It's fair enough to acknowledge that we have a talent or an ability, and then use it to benefit sentient beings. But arrogance and pride is, I'm special because, yeah. And it has a lot of therefores. I'm special because of ABC. Therefore, you should treat me like XYZ. Okay? You shouldn't disrespect me because I'm very knowledgeable. Okay, then arrogance or pride about our youth. I'm young, I'm fit. Yeah, this is great. Look at all these old people at the Abbey. I'm one of the younger ones, and I can move just like they can't. Yeah, they're kind of, crawling along. Yeah, always having some illness, always having some ache and pain. Yeah, look at all their wrinkles. But I'm young and attractive. Good luck. Okay, so we get arrogant about, our youth as well. So we want to be young in comparison to older people, but we want to be old in comparison to younger people. Okay? Yeah. So when you're 16, then you're arrogant for being old with your younger siblings because you can boss them around and tell them what to do. But when you're with your older siblings, then it's different. Yeah. Okay. And then power. We get also arrogant about our power. Yeah, I have certain status, therefore I can do this, I can do that. Just call me when you need some help. I have connections. Yeah. Speaking of which, Scott Pruitt just resigned. Hooray! Finally! Yeah. All the ethical things. Yeah. But the guy, his deputy thing is, in terms of EPA regulations, follows the same script. Okay, but yeah, power. Scott, do you know? You probably don't know who he is. We have one post in the government called the Environmental Protection Agency that is supposed to enact policies to protect the environment. And he was appointed as head of it. And then he undid all the good regulations. Yeah. And then plus he had a lot of ethical things, asking the people in his office to do personal favors, asking people to find his wife a job, all sorts of not nice things. Yeah. So, did I describe it? Well, yeah. So, this thing about power, I have the power to do this and that. I'm an important person, so don't you want to know me? Okay. So such traits are seen as enemies of good. Okay. So this is, again, a topic that I recommend for your Lamrim meditation. Go through each of these, and try and understand what it is. Then find examples of it in your own behavior, not the behavior of others. Yeah. Okay. But we look at it in terms of our own behavior and then think, what effect does this kind of way of thinking have on me? How does it make for good communication with other people? Does it build trust in relationships? Does it create virtuous karma, for good results in the future? Is it a quality that the enlightened ones have, or is it the opposite of the qualities the enlightened ones have? Okay, so do some reflection. And then, also think, okay, in situations where these ones tend to pop up in my mind, then how else can I think to subdue them? Okay, so when you're stingy, what do you think? Hmm? Yeah, so if you notice stinginess in yourself, what can you say to yourself to help you overcome that stinginess? Yeah, that giving is the cause for abundance and for receiving. Okay. How about, when I'm stingy, how do I look to other people? Hmm? And especially if you have kids, and you're trying to set a good example to your kids, how do you appear? Yeah. When you're greedy, what can you say to yourself to overcome greed? Hmm?
There is enough.
You can say there is enough. Yeah, I don't need more. And you can also remember the things I'm greedy for, they come and they go. Okay. When you're lazy, what can you say to yourself?
You're impermanent.
Huh?
You're impermanent. You're going to die.
Yeah, you're impermanent. You're going to die, Don't waste your time. Okay. Or if it's the laziness of discouragement, remember that you have the Buddha nature.
Discouragement is useless.
Yeah, discouragement is useless, right? Okay. When there's deceit in your mind, yeah, denying bad qualities that you have, and you notice you're doing that, what can you say to yourself? What can you think to overcome that?
How do I feel when I'm lied to?
How do I feel when?
I'm lied to.
Oh, yeah. How do I feel when other people put on a song and dance to me and lie to me and cover things up? Yeah. I think it's also healthy to be able to say, if I acknowledge my faults, then I'm not going to get arrogant. And that's going to be a blessing for me. So rather than covering up my faults, I'm going to acknowledge them. And then that gets rid of the deceit, and it also gets rid of the arrogance. Yeah, I don't need to be better than, yeah. Well, this one is, that's more arrogance. This one's covering up our mistakes, but they are interrelated. And remembering, I don't need to be better than anybody. I am a unique individual, and I also am a being in samsara, and I'm not perfect. Yeah. How about pretension? When you're pretending to have good qualities you don't have, what can you say to yourself? Yeah.
I'll never make any real progress.
Yeah. Yeah. I won't make any real progress.
When you have
Yeah.
pretension, you're lonely because no one knows you.
Yeah, that's true. You are very lonely. And, and it brings anxiety because you create the image of a person that you aren't, and then you have to keep it up. And that creates anxiety. Okay? When you have arrogance, okay, over your breeding, whatever that. Okay. Yeah. Well, maybe we should say, how about good looks? How are you going to counteract that if you're arrogant about that? Yeah, TikTok. I'm getting older and uglier. Okay. My body's falling apart moment by moment. Okay. How about learning?
Soon I will forget everything I learned.
Yeah, right. And it's true. We will forget everything we'll learn. Yeah. Yeah. If we live long enough, to have dementia, then for sure. Yeah. Even if we don't live long enough. I don't know about you, but what I majored in college, I can't remember anything. Yeah. Can you remember what you learned in your college education? Well, I have an excuse, because there's several decades, but I think my amnesia started early. Yeah, but it's interesting. Yeah, learning, dude. How long does that stay with us? Hmm? How about youth? Again, like the body, we're getting older. And power?
Can't lift 405 pounds forever.
Huh?
Can't lift 405 pounds forever.
Yeah. I mean, our power is impermanent, isn't it?
Goes up, must come down.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, work on behalf of people who don't have that. Yeah.
I was going to say that to me, it's like these are things someone else gave you.
Mm-hmm.
What have I contributed? Am I responsible for being good looking or bad looking for that matter? Of course not.
Mm-hmm.
My breeding, I had nothing to say about the matter. I just got born.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's like a borrowed quality that I
Yeah.
can't take credit for myself.
Yeah. And even learning, everything we know is because other people taught us. We didn't come out of our mother's womb knowledgeable.
Exactly. And we had the money we have the degree from Yale because our parents had the money to send us there or whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's nothing the child or I earned.
Yes.
It's just
Yeah.
blessing.
It's not some inherent ability we have. So it's nothing to lord over others. Then, verse 13 is exercising. Here, they use carefulness. I translate it as conscientiousness, okay, regarding what is compatible with ethical conduct, okay? So the verse, so conscientiousness means that you practice virtuous activities and you guard the mind from non-virtuous ones or tainted virtue, having a rotten motivation when you do things. So conscientious means you care about your ethical conduct. Yeah, it's important to you. And so you're careful about your behavior. So conscientiousness is the way to deathlessness, while lack of conscientiousness is death, the Buddha taught. And thus, so that your virtuous deeds may grow, be conscientious constantly and with respect. Okay, so there's a whole chapter in Shantideva's Guide to Bodhisattva's Way of Life about conscientiousness. Okay, and why is it the way to deathlessness or the way to immortality? It's because when we're conscientious and we care about virtue, then we abandon the things that are counterproductive and we practice what is productive, and thereby we can attain nirvana. And deathlessness or the deathless is a synonym for nirvana. Okay, so whereas when we lack conscientiousness, then we just do whatever and we follow whatever thought comes in our mind very impetuously, and then wind up in big messes afterwards, and wind up creating a lot of non-virtue. Yeah. So the mind that we sometimes call it being spontaneous. Yeah. Oh, I have the spontaneous wish to insult you. Yeah. No, we should be conscientious and be able to discern what is virtue, what is not virtue, to distinguish the two, and then to care about that, and then to act accordingly. Yeah. Whereas when we lack conscientiousness and heedlessness, then we're like balls bouncing off the walls. Yeah, and our behavior becomes sometimes quite unpredictable. And I think, as we've all experienced, when we're not careful or conscientious, we wind up getting ourselves in some pretty big messes. Yeah? Have you been in big messes in your life? Yeah? And it's nice to blame our big messes on other people. But didn't we have something to do with it too? Yeah. I know for myself, sometimes the big messes I got myself into, there were red flags along the way, and I chose to ignore them. Yeah. So, okay, the red flags are somebody else's doing, but my choosing to ignore them, that's my responsibility. Yeah, I was careless. Okay, then we'll go on to verse 14. So this also talks about conscientiousness and about the benefits of it and some examples of it. And sometimes being conscientious, other people will criticize us for it. Yeah, but they say, "Oh, you're just too strict. Loosen up a little bit. There's this opportunity. Nobody'll know. Just do it." Yeah. But then, speaking about Scott Pruitt, isn't it the lack of conscientiousness that got him fired? Yeah. Yeah. When we talk about, what's his name, Manafort? Yeah. Isn't it the lack of conscientiousness? How about Cohen? Same thing. So there it is in the newspaper, all these examples. And, instead of just pointing the finger at them and saying, look at those awful people, realizing that we have that same mental factor in our own mind. And if we, are not vigilant, then we could wind up, with that mental factor controlling our decisions. Yeah, and wind up in some big messes. Big messes are so wonderful, aren't they? Don't you just love being in a big mess? Yeah, they're pretty bad, aren't they? At least my big messes have been pretty bad. I don't want to wish them on anybody. Okay, verse 14. Those who formerly lacked conscientiousness, but then took heed, are beautiful and fair, as is the moon emerging from the clouds, like Nanda, Angulimala, Ajatasattu, and Udayana. Okay, so Ajatasattu is a more well-known name than Darshaka. Okay, so we'll tell the stories of those. Okay, so what this verse is saying is somebody could have lacked conscientiousness before and been very careless, but when they realize their error and start being conscientious, yeah, then they become beautiful and fair. So I don't think this necessarily means physically, yeah, but their personality becomes something enjoyable and something admirable. Okay. So the verse is emphasizing that people can change, that we shouldn't just brand somebody as unconscientious, throw them in a category, probably our enemy category, and then, never let them out. But to realize that people can change, just like the moon can come out from behind clouds, or just the way the sun also can come out from behind clouds. So, people can improve. We should give them a break and not just always hold negative things against them. But at the same time, we need to be wise, and have clear signs that they have changed. Okay, so then it gives some examples from some of the Buddha's disciples. Okay, so Nanda, the first one, he was a cousin or some kind of relative of the Buddha, a younger relative. And he ordained, but he had been married before, but he ordained and his mind was just always thinking about his wife, and she's so beautiful and she's so lovely and I want to be with her, and if I can't be with her, there's all these other attractive women, and so his mind's just completely going off in these kind of fantasies. And needless to say, it was interfering with his keeping his precepts. And so the Buddha, seeing that Nanda would probably be born in one of the hellish realms because of this kind of thinking and behavior, gave him a personal instruction. And what he did, what was it he did? He took Nanda to see the women in the God realm, in the celestial realm, and said, look at them. They're much more beautiful than your wife and all these other women. And if you practice pure ethical conduct, you can be born in the celestial realms with these super beautiful women that are much superior to your wife. So that's how he got Nanda, to detach himself from his wife. And so Ananda started, this is not Ananda. Ananda is completely different. This is Nanda. Okay, so Nanda started practicing the Dharma very well. First with this aspiration to be born in the celestial realms. But as he practiced, his mind began to change and he became more conscientious and he eventually became an arhat. So it had a happy ending. Okay, Angulimala was the one who was he was a criminal. He was actually the son of a Brahmin, so he started out, high rank. But he had a very bad teacher, and his teacher said, if you kill 1,000 people and make a necklace with their finger bones, then you can be reborn in the celestial realms. So Angulimala thought, oh, that sounds good, you know. So he's started out and killing all these people and then stringing, you know, their finger bones up to make like a garland. And he killed 999. He needed one more. And so he was walking around the road, and he, you know, everybody in the area was terrified of this guy, you know, for good reason. Okay. And I mean, he was a serial killer. Yeah. And he was walking around looking for his south victim, and he saw the Buddha. Okay. And the Buddha was walking very slowly, very mindfully. And Angulimala thought, I can catch this guy. So he started running, you know, to catch the Buddha. And however fast he ran, he couldn't catch the Buddha, even though the Buddha was walking very slowly. Yeah. And what was it? Let's see if I can remember this story properly. He shouted to the Buddha, you know, stop, kind of, you know. And the Buddha said, you need to stop. Yeah, wasn't that it? Yeah. Or I have stopped. Yeah, I have stopped, meaning I have stopped the afflictions. Okay, I have stopped the defilements. So that really shocked Angulimala, you know, and he became a disciple of the Buddha. And he also became an arhat. But because he had such a bad reputation in the community, when he would go out on alms round with his bowl, people would, you know, scream and say, there's Angulimala. And they would throw things at him and, you know, to try and chase him away and, you know, or throw stones at him, whatever. And so sometimes he came back, he was kind of injured. And the Buddha said, you know, bear it. This is the karmic result of your actions. Yeah. So kind of be brave, be courageous, and bear the result of your actions. Okay, then Ajatasastru. Okay, so he was the son of King Bimbisara. King Bimbisara was the one of the patrons of the Buddha and a very good practitioner. Ajatasastru, his son, became friends with Devadatta, who was the Buddha's cousin. So Devadatta was always jealous of the Buddha, and he wanted to kill the Buddha. He tried many ways to kill the Buddha so that he could take over leadership of the order. So he and Ajatasastru got together because Devadatta wanted to get rid of the Buddha and become the leader of the order, and Ajatasastru wanted to get rid of his father so he could become the king. Yeah. So he imprisoned both his mother and his father, and he killed his father. I think he killed his mother as well. And then later he was overcome with grief. You know, when he realized what he did, he was really overcome with grief, and you know, became an arhat. In terms of Devadatta, I don't know. The Buddha never criticized him, but I don't know if let me see. No, it doesn't say what happened to Devadatta, but I don't think he became an arhat because he was the one of the 5 heinous crimes, causing a schism in the Sangha and drawing blood from the Buddha. He did both of those. So of those 5 heinous ones, you have a direct ticket to hell. when you die. Do not pass go, do not collect $200. You go directly. So he was in pretty big trouble, although the Buddha never criticized him. So if you ever have problems with your relatives, think of King Vivasara, think of the Buddha. Yeah, your relatives are nothing compared to theirs and what they did. Okay, then Udayana, killed his mother when she prevented him from sleeping with somebody else's wife. Okay, so he wanted to go off and have an affair, and his mother stopped him, and he got furious and killed her. Okay, but when he realized that he had committed one of these 5 heinous actions, which is one of them is killing your mother, then he also took ordination. Okay. But, he took ordination. But when the Sangha realized that he had committed this kind of heinous crime, they expelled him, because if you've done this kind of action, you are not qualified to take monastic ordination. So the Sangha expelled Udayana, and he went somewhere far away. He built a temple, and he stayed there. And slowly, different monks started gathering there, and he took care of them. Okay, and so he reformed his ways, and the Sangha is a powerful object with which to create karma, so he created some good karma there. Okay, so as a result, when he died, he was first born in the hell realms as a result of having killed his mother. Okay, but then after that, he was reborn in the celestial realm because of taking care of the Sangha. That's finishing talking about ethical conduct and the importance of conscientiousness for keeping it. And then the next goes into fortitude. But before we do this, are there questions or comments?
If earlier when you mentioned how Shantideva had talked about be like a log, if that's referring to conscientiousness or vigilance or what really it refers
I
to.
wanted to explain that and I forgot. So when Shantideva said be like a log, he was referring to when you're in situations where the urge comes up to badmouth other people or to act inappropriately, or your mind is getting uncontrolled in one way or another, then be like a log means a log stays stationary. Yeah, it means refrain from doing that action. Yeah, a log just stays stationary. So it's a good technique. Like if your mind is getting way out of control, and to say, okay, let's make this mind like a log for a minute, and I just got to make it stationary, balanced, immovable. Get that thought out of my mind. So you're not pushing that thought away, because if you say, don't think about pink elephants, what do you think about? But you're saying, okay, let's come back to just right here, right now, my breath, compassion, whatever you like to come back to when your mind gets uncontrolled. Then we'll do verse 15. So this is about fortitude. So again, instead of patience, I use the word fortitude. Yeah. Hard to practice, fortitude knows no peer. So never allow yourself a moment's rage. Avoid all anger, and you will become a non-returner. So the Buddha said. Okay, so it is hard to practice. Fortitude is hard to practice. there's different kinds of fortitude. Here we're, well, there's different kinds, and it could refer to any of them here. One kind is the fortitude of bearing suffering. So if you have physical suffering or things aren't going well in your life, the ability to bear that without freaking out, going bananas, wailing, all the things we tend to do when we experience suffering. That's one. Another one is the fortitude of bearing other people's harmful behavior towards you. Okay? So they talk about an ascetic practice here. When people hit you, you don't strike back. When people criticize you, you don't criticize them back or deprecate them back. When people ridicule you or embarrass you, you don't ridicule or embarrass them back. And what's the fourth one? Somebody help me. There's a fourth one. Strike, beating somebody, criticizing them, insulting them. Oh yeah, and the fourth one is anger. When somebody's angry at you, don't retaliate with anger. Okay, so those are called ascetic practices. We usually think ascetic practices, you starve yourself, you self-flagellate or something. But these are real ascetic practices. Yeah, when somebody's mad at you, to refrain from getting angry back. Yeah, somebody hits you, you refrain from hitting back. Somebody criticizes you, you don't turn around and deprecate them. And then somebody ridicules you or embarrasses you, insults you, you don't return that either. That's real asceticism, isn't it? That's much harder than, giving up food for a day or something like that. But this is the practice of fortitude, and so that's why I like the word fortitude, because to me fortitude implies inner strength. Patience implies waiting for somebody. Fortitude implies, for me anyway, you have inner strength. Yeah, you aren't going to get blown over by what happens, whether it's sickness, whether it's somebody else's behavior, or even the third one is the difficulties you encounter in practicing the Dharma. Yeah, because sometimes it's hard to look at ourselves honestly. Sometimes it's difficult to get to Dharma teachings. You have to go through a lot of hardship to get to Dharma teachings. Yeah, sometimes it's difficult when your teacher or your Dharma friends gives you feedback that you wish was the opposite of what they're saying. Yeah, but the ability to bear things because you have some inner strength. Yeah, that's what fortitude is talking about. And we can see that if we have that, then we can endure many kind of situations without being disgruntled or unhappy. And I did a lot of reading about the Cultural Revolution in China. Yeah, I was quite interested in that topic. And you can see, because family members were betraying each other. Yeah, teachers and students were betraying each other. Innocent people were getting imprisoned. And for people who had fortitude, they could bear those situations. For people who lacked fortitude, many of them died in prison. They just gave up. Yeah. So when I was in China at one time some years ago, I had read about this, and then I met some people who this had happened to. I met some nuns whose temple was turned into a factory, and they were forced in these sessions. What did the Communist Party call them? Yeah, re-education sessions. Yeah. To criticize the Dharma, but also to walk around town with a dunce cap and with placards on front and back saying, I was a foolish believer in religion, things just completely, I didn't believe the truth of communism. These kind of statements, they had to walk around town with these placards and a dunce cap, which was very humiliating, of course. Okay, saying things that, of course, they didn't believe. Yeah. And so I met, there were, I think, two or three maybe of these nuns, maybe four of them. And that was their experience during the Cultural Revolution, And they lived through it. And their temple was, I think, beginning to be restored when I met them some years ago. Yeah, but when you read other stories of people who were imprisoned as political prisoners, many of them couldn't handle it. Yeah, and they died in prison. Yeah, so there's some definite advantages to having fortitude. There was one monk who was imprisoned, a Tibetan monk who was imprisoned for many years, and he finally got out and he made his way to Dharamsala to meet with His Holiness. And His Holiness asked him, "What were you most afraid of when you were in prison?" And the monk said, "I was afraid of losing compassion for the guards, for the people who were imprisoning me." Wow. So that's somebody who had fortitude.